everybody. It's Rosalind again. So you know what time it is. That means it's time for Real Talk Now. Yes, yes. What we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk about the art of marriage. Happiness in marriage is not something that just happens. A good marriage must be created in the marriage. The little things are the big things, and the big things are the little things. It is never being too old to hold hands. It is remembering to say, I love you at least once a day. It is not going to sleep angry. It is at no time taking the other for granted. The courtship should not end with the honeymoon, but rather it should continue through all the years. It is having a mutual sense of value and a common objective. It is standing together facing the world. It is forming a circle of love that gathers in the whole family. It is doing things for each other, not in the attitude of duty or sacrifice, but rather in the spirit of love. It is speaking words of appreciation and in demonstrating gratitude in thoughtful ways. It is not looking for perfection in each other, but rather it is cultivating flexibility, patience, understanding, and a sense of humor. It is having the capacity to forgive and also attempting to forget. It is giving each other an atmosphere in which we can grow. And it is finding room for the things of the Spirit. It is a common search for the good and the beautiful. It's establishing a relationship in which the dependent is independent equally. Dependence is mutual, and the obligation is reciprocated. It is not only marrying the right partner, but it's also being the right partner. It is discovering what marriage can be at its best. Yes. Now, this beautiful poem by Winifred A. Peterson speaks of the power of marriage. It speaks of flexibility in marriage, and it also speaks of unity in a marriage. We often hear those words, falling in love and becoming one, using the power of two to change the world. Our love will sustain us, and we will be together forever. Family, all those are beautiful, beautiful statements from couples when we are in the honeymoon stage, in the beautiful beginning of our relationships, and when we fall in love and decide that we are going to marry. Sadly, too many couples forget the covenant that was made in those happier times. Some couples made that covenant with themselves alone, and others made that covenant with themselves, but they also put God at the helm of that covenant. Today, we will hear from 4 couples that are in different stages of their marriage and in their life. Some are married with no children. Some are married with biological children, and some are a blended family. No matter the dynamic of each marriage, they all required an adjustment period in order to coexist and to remember the marriage covenant with Christ. We want you to know that we are not counselors or therapists, but we are couples that have experienced marriage at different stages. And we know that marriage is something that is sometimes hard, sometimes beautiful, sometimes the hardest thing that we may experience in life. And that is because if we are making a conscious effort to function in unity, we are also making that conscious effort to function within ourselves and maintaining some independence. Allow me to introduce Janisha and Monty, Stephanie and Ivan, Trinique and Nick, and Shanor and Marcus. What I want you all to do one at a time, I want you to unmute yourself and please tell me and the family just a little about yourself.
How you guys doing? I'm Monty. This is my wife, Janisha.
Hello.
We're the Williams family. We'll be married 3 years this coming year in September. I'm an engineer and my wife's a nursing student.
We met in college,
Yeah.
our freshman year, about almost 12 years ago. And we currently reside in Columbia, South Carolina, where we worship at the Sunset Boulevard Church of Christ. We also serve a ministry together. He's a part of the media team at church. I sing with the worship team and also sing with the gospel group in him. And we're just happy that Sister Price thought to include us.
Yeah.
Hello, family. My name is Nixon, and this is my lovely wife, Trinique. We are the Sylvains. We've been for 10 years. I always gotta get it right because, you know, sometimes husbands, we forget about the year that we've been married. But I've been married 10 lovely years with Sister Trinique, and I am a laboratory scientist.
And I work in the medical field.
Yes, and we reside here in Florida, and we go to Hope Church of Christ under the leadership of Brother Alvin Daniels Jr. And we're just happy, just excited to be part of this, you know, this platform to discuss the art of marriage.
Absolutely.
Hello, everybody. I'm Marcus. This is my wife, Shanoa, and we are the Lavells. We've been married just over 13 years. We have 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl. We are originally from a small town outside of Nashville, Tennessee called Springfield. And we knew each other as teenagers, but we ended up not really talking or getting together until late 20s, I would say. And late 20s. I might have been 30, 29, but I felt like I was in 20 still. And we currently live in North Carolina. I am a military contractor, and let my wife tell you a little bit about what she does.
Hey, y'all. As you know, I'm Shanoa, his wife. And I'm a family consultant for a nonprofit organization that specializes in therapeutic foster care. And we're glad to be a part of this.
Yeah.
We also had one more couple who unfortunately was not able to join us tonight, but I know that they would have done an awesome job. So I know you all are going to stand in the gap and hold it down for the Wilson family, right? Oh, wait a minute. I think they may have been able to join us. So we're going to see if we can allow them a little time to come on in and introduce themselves to the family. But you know what? There we go. There they go. Okay, I want you all to go ahead and introduce you. We had some hiccups, you all, but we got it going. How about that? So I want you all to unmute yourself and, yeah.
We made it.
Thank you, Jaja.
Yay.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Ivan Wilson, and this is my wife, Stephanie. As far as introduction, I am the assistant minister at the Sharp Road Church of Christ in Greensboro, North Carolina, originally from Jackson, Mississippi. And we've been married coming up on 11 years this October. And we do have 2 girls. They are not mine biologically. However, they are mine. So been with them, and
2 young ladies.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, they are 22 and 20. So yeah, that's where we are.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Thought you want.
okay, I'm gonna let you go ahead and say a few things, Stephanie, if you want to, before we keep going. Go ahead.
He pretty much said it, other than I am Stephanie Booker Wilson of Stephanie Sings Vocal Studio, where we are helping singers discover the vocal treasure that is buried inside of them by helping them to master vocal projection, breathing technique, and pitch while building their confidence, competence, and courage. That is who we are. That is what we do. Grateful to do what it is that he gave us to do in purpose, for his purpose, on purpose.
Okay, I'm gonna need you to write my next promo, okay? Because she did. Okay, I'm gonna get everybody to mute themselves right now. And I'm gonna ask a few questions, and just as one person and one group is talking, that's all. Everybody else keep unmuted just to make sure it's gonna come in crystal clear. How about that? Okay, so we're gonna talk, like I said, about the art of marriage, and we're gonna go through the stages of marriage. We're gonna discuss raising godly children, finances within the marriage, blended families, and children produced in the marriage, because these things can throw a different dynamic within relationships, because it's not just involving yourself, but it's involving outside influences, not only children, but situations that we have to sometime adjust to, okay? So let's discuss the honeymoon and the adjustment phase, okay? Now, those are those first months or even the first years of your marriage. And this is that time that the couples may often are preoccupied with themselves. You know how you get the butterflies because you're about to see them. Because it's still something that's new, because you're learning to adjust to one another and learning to adjust to that united relationship, okay? And also, it may be that time when you're starting to realize your new reality, okay? Now, how was it for you all in your relationship? Because each relationship is different. And I think it was Ivan who said that all relationships, there's no cookie cutter pattern. I think that was him who said within the relationship. So each relationship is unique, even though they may have some similarities. I want one of you all to jump in there and answer that question for me, that honeymoon phase.
I guess we'll go first, since where people consider us still in that particular phase. But again, it's not cookie cutter. So for me personally, it was the transition. I know my mom's watching. Hey, Mom. The transition of leaving her, that whole ordeal was very stressful. Just being apart from her and not necessarily not being able to see her when I wanted to, but just leaving and cleaving to my husband, and embarking on this journey as husband and wife, and then expectations that I personally probably put on myself that he didn't have for me. Like, I'm around women here currently in Columbia who throw down every day or on the weekends, and like, is he expecting me to cook every day or have these like extravagant meals and things like that? And I'm just like, oh my goodness. So just those expectations, and then considering him. I've always considered him, because again, we dated 9 years before we actually got married. So we were already pretty acquainted with each other, but it was more so, okay, not this is what I got going on and I'll see you when I see you. Now it's like, okay, what you think about this? What do we have going on at this particular time, and X, Y, and Z. So just that adjustment phase. And we had this idea, or we were told, you know, it's this whole reset button. When you get married, it's going to be just everything. So that whole transition, me moving down here, and then God came in. I feel like he was like, okay, we have a good church home. He was already serving where we at right now at Sunset. And not even exactly 6 months into our marriage, COVID hit.
Right.
So we're dealing with a global pandemic in our first year of marriage. I got laid off from my job during the pandemic. Going into the second year of marriage, he got laid off from his job. And transitioning to finding a new job, to now he's having to, when his new job, he had to commute to work an hour and a half. To, in that second year, catching COVID together. Catching COVID together. We can laugh about it now because we've made it through. And just recently, this past 6 months, up until last week, I would only see him twice a week. If we're being transparent, I would only see him twice a week because he wasn't coming home since gas prices and wear and tear on the vehicles and things like that were happening. So it's like, what's the honeymoon? In that sense of like, you know, we appreciate our time together, but I think this time really was a transition in our bond that like, I got his back, I can hold it down when he's not here. I know he's holding it down because when I got a new job, I ended up quitting my job to go to school full time. So we're one income household, and so he can hold it down. He has my back and vice versa. So that's our honeymoon phase until almost 3 years. So it's definitely been an adjustment, but God has definitely been keeping us together for sure.
Hey, so I guess we will, talk a little bit about our honeymoon phase and / adjustment phase, because, it was all good and everything. You know, we loved each other, but we were in 2 different places. She was in Tennessee and I was in Mississippi, and so it was like, well, hey, you got to move down here to Mississippi. So it was right at the beginning of the marriage. So, and once she moved down, me being a single guy, the neighborhood wasn't as safe. I kind of lived in the hood. I was in the military, so I was always working, was never home. So she was like, well, hey, I can't, she was a single mom at the time, so we had my youngest son. So, she was like, hey, this ain't gonna work out. We can't be, you gone all the time. We can't be living here in this neighborhood. Not, so it was an adjustment phase. We had to, I had to, listen to my wife, and, and she was in the church and I wasn't, I wasn't going to church. So it was really eye-opening. I had to, consider my wife, and, she got my started going to church, and then it, it worked out, it was all God.
It was all God. Yeah. It was definitely an adjustment. We both were still kind of, I guess, in a single phase, because when we actually moved in together, and it was really eye-opening, because me, I was the type of person, if I wanted to get up and go to Walmart, I got up and go to Walmart. But I remember I was trying to get up and go, it's probably 9 o'clock. I'm going to Walmart. He looked at me like, you doing what? Well, I'm gonna come. Well, no, I like to go to Walmart by myself, And so we had that conversation a lot of the time, well, you didn't tell me you was going to this store and this store. Well, I didn't think I had to tell you I was going to this store and this store. I was leaving the house, so just being considerate of each other. And remember, we are one now. We are not single people anymore. We have to consider the other. So that was a big adjustment. I'm not by myself. He's not by himself. And we had to really figure that out. Seemed like it would come natural, but it don't. When you're living on your own for so long, and then you move in, you marry and move in with somebody else, it don't come as natural as you think it would. So it took a lot of prayer, a lot of patience, and a lot of compromise, and just understanding that, I do have to answer to my husband, and he does have to answer to me. So that was a big part of our adjustment. But look at God.
Yeah. Let's keep this train moving, people. Trinique and Nick, go ahead. Or Ivan, Stephanie, if you all were next, go ahead. Either one.
All right. So when it comes down to a honeymoon phase, it was different for us, being that when we got married, the girls were 10 and 8. So immediately it was October. And so they still had school on Monday. And so I remember we ran up the road about an hour and a half away, and spent the weekend. And then we were right back because, again, we had responsibilities. So got them school, and I think I was still trying to find a job at the time in the area where she was. So yeah, we had real life happening immediately. And so, yeah. It was just a matter of figuring out how to make it work, starting from day one.
So yeah, honeymoon though.
All right, I guess it's our turn. The Wilson, powerful testimony. But our honeymoon phase, it was a little different because I've known Trinique back in 2008. We got baptized in 2009, and I think that's important for me to mention. Yeah. Because prior to baptism, or even prior to Christ, I didn't even think I would be a married man. Because I would tell my brothers, like, I would never get married. But in 2009, I got married. 2009, I got in the body of Christ. In 2012, I proposed to Trinique actually in 2011, and I got married 2012. Yeah. So during our honeymoon phase, it was different for me because I moved out of my parents' house at a late stage in my life, in my late 20s. And Trinique was an independent woman. So I can't imagine you getting married to a woman. She had her own car, she had her own place, she had everything going for herself, where I'm leaving my parents' house. So it was, and on top of that, she had a child. So here it is, getting married to Trinique and going through this adjustment, because I thought the honeymoon phase was going to be about, going to dinners every day of the week. I thought it would be about taking cruises. I mean, that's what I imagined, at least coming up, that's what I thought. When you go on a honeymoon, that's what you do. You take a trip to the islands and you just have a great time and y'all just party out. But that wasn't the case for us. So immediately when we got married, Trinique and I ended up in a efficiency. And Trinique's daughter had to move in with her parents. So it was tough for us because here we are, we're getting married and we're stuck in this like little cubicle. It was like equivalent to like a cubicle. We're like this little room. And it was hard for us because Trinique was like, this is not what I envisioned. I know we just got married, but here we are, we're in this little room. This is not what I envisioned. I envisioned for us to be in a place, for my daughter to be with us, but our daughter wasn't with us.
Well, technically, we had, before we had got married, we had already found a place at that time. So it was just the process. It was a brand new place, apartment. So it was taking a long time for them to, it just was a lot that was going on. So it was like when we got married, I didn't want to move into his parents' place, and then, he didn't want to move into my parents' place. So that's when we got the efficiency, and my daughter moved in with my mom and my dad, and we were waiting forever for our place to be where we can primarily move into.
Yes, and it was tough, even, and I like how you pointed out the honeymoons could stem from like 6 months to a year to 2 years. And I know the Williams are still in the honeymoon phase, but those first 2 years was tough for us because not only I'm adjusting to my own personal lifestyle, at least I was living in my parents' house, so I'm adjusting to now becoming a leader, to be the priest and the provider and protector of my home. And on top of that, I got a daughter. I've never raised a child before. Yeah. So here I am, I'm trying to adjust and trying to read books, and try to raise up a child.
Right.
But those books, sometimes it didn't quite help. I had to face what was in front of me, and then Trinique had to help me cope and help me do those type of things. And within a year after our marriage, I ended up losing my job. So now I'm jobless. So I was getting hit in every corner. I got to raise up a daughter. I'm jobless. And on top of that, trying to be the leader, try to be the priest, the provider, the protector of my home. So it was quite of an adjustment for us during those phases in our life. But the one thing that I do want to mention, we had a good, strong support system within the first 2 years in our marriage. And I think that's what kept us strong. That's what kept us stable. And at least that's what encouraged us throughout the first 2 years.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you all. Interesting. As you all see, like we said, there's no cookie cutter pattern for those first years. Your relationship, is your relationship. Now let's talk about the great escape phase, okay? Now this is that time when the power struggles sometimes begin as the couples begin to realize, okay, we're married. We marry somebody, but that person may not be as perfect as I may have initially thought, okay? Or you may begin to see those flaws that you did not see before because you were in love, okay? Both of us have, both people in the marriage have those vices, but sometimes the other person's vices begin to get magnified. And this is a very crucial stage because this is often that time that the couples question whether or not they need to stay in the marriage. Sometimes it's a good idea to partake in premarital counseling. I say strong faith-based premarital counseling if possible, because that may not give you all the answers, but it may give you a look and a true look of what marriage potentially may look like. Did you all partake in premarital counseling, and did that help you in those initial stages of your marriage?
All right, we'll take first.
Yes, to answer your question, we did do premarital counseling, and yes, that did help greatly. I would say that for us, with this marriage being, we jokingly say our first marriage was our practice marriage. So I would say because we had that marriage under our belt already and coming into this relationship with the premarital counseling, we were in a really good place. I felt like we were. I think we felt like we were kind of getting ahead of the 8 ball, if you will, in terms of getting some tools to use in those times that we knew would come. We didn't really know what would come, but because we had both been married before, we kind of had this expectation of that phase. But I will say that you can never be too prepared. And that's why I say the premarital counseling helped us greatly, because my mama used to say all the time, my grandmama, you don't know people till you live with them. No truer words have ever been spoken. If you have not lived with somebody, you do not know them. You don't know what they do. You don't know how they do it. You don't know what their quirks are. You don't know what's going to irritate you. You don't know till you know. So you need some stuff to help you get through the go-through piece of this thing. So absolutely, I would definitely recommend premarital counseling, getting some tools under your belt. And not just for the tools, but I would say premarital counseling before you're married, obviously premarital, to make sure that that is the person that you want to marry. Because sometimes counseling will bring out some things. That's why they're the professionals. They know the questions to ask and the conversations to lead you into, to help you see some things that you don't necessarily see in that googly-eyed phase of life when all you see is the beauty and the flowers and skipping through the lilies of the field. Baby, real life is about to hit you. So you need to know that, and you need to be prepared. So yes, I felt like we were, but still, it's still difficult. That's why I say you got to be prepared, because it's going to still be difficult either way.
Well, to piggyback, I will say that no, wow, that went left very quickly. I hope y'all didn't hear what you said. Anyway, so I've been in ministry a long time, and I've seen and done, you know, premarital counseling, and I have always felt that a lot of us as ministers, we do a disservice, you know, where we have a short, you know, 2 or 3, maybe 4 sessions with somebody, and we basically start educating on some things to expect in marriage. Okay, you know, what would you do about finances and stuff like that? So we kind of hit some of the hot button topics, and then we say, hey, you've had premarital counseling, and boom, let's go. And then I started with us when we went through premarital counseling. One of the things that I was, I really, again, I've been in ministry. I know a lot of preachers that do counseling. So it was like, I don't want to do, you know, the preacher counseling. So we actually went to a psychologist professional. And I appreciate what he brought out, because it did cause us to have conversations that we would not have had. And so I appreciated the premarital counseling so much that I ended up becoming a Prepare and Enrich marriage assessment facilitator, so that we can do a scientific based deal, you know, to create these conversations. Because like Stephanie was saying, with tools don't work if you don't work them.
Come on.
You know, so just because I got a hammer and I need to drive a nail in the wall, if I don't use the hammer, then I can use my head or my hand or whatever else, and it can hurt, but I got the tool. And that's what premarital counseling did provide us. But when you got to actually apply that stuff, you know, when you start talking about year 2, 3, and you know, several years removed from the counseling, now you got to do this stuff, and it's just a totally different animal when you got to apply it.
Let's keep it moving, people.
Yeah, so I'll speak on this one. So for us, we did not go to counseling. We kind of eloped. And so we never had time for counseling. But what we did do, my husband set me down, and we were in our 30s, and we had already been through plenty of trial and error in relationships. And my husband set me down before we actually eloped, and he said, hey, let's set down some ground rules. What don't you like? What do you like? What's acceptable? What's not acceptable? And some of the things we laid out, like my husband's first rule was, don't put your hands on me. Don't hit me. Don't hit me. And I won't hit you. Because I guess maybe in my past I was a fighter, and he knew it. And he said, don't put your hands on me. And I said, okay. And then it was stuff like, I told him, I let him know ahead of time, I'm not a morning person. I'm not going to get up and cook breakfast. So like, don't expect me to cook breakfast. Like, don't even expect me to cook dinner all the time. Like, I'm going to do the best I can, but I don't want you to have these high expectations, you know, I know me, you know. And then it was stuff like, if we get upset, don't leave the house. You can go in the other room, you know, go take a walk around the block, but don't get in your car and actually leave the house, because that we can't solve it if we're not in the same home. We normally try to go to bed together, you know, at nighttime around the same time, you know, just to, you know, and I think that's helped us a lot. We don't use the D word, the divorce word, unless somebody's really serious. And it's kind of funny because, you know, my husband, I tried to break one of the rules. I was going to leave one time, and I packed my little bag, and I'm like, and he come to me and he saw me, you know, getting ready to leave, and he said, look, I love you. I don't want you to go. But if you do go, it ain't guaranteed I'm going to be here when you come back. And so I took my little bag and put it back in the closet, and we prayed about it. And 10 years later, we still together. So but for us, just those ground rules and taking those ground rules seriously really helped us, because we hadn't, to this day, we still, we hadn't overstepped those ground rules and boundaries. So.
Yes, so we'll take this one. So yes, again, like I mentioned, I proposed to Trinique in 2011, and we got married in October 2011. We got married like three months later.
6 months later.
It was 3 months, honey.
6 months.
Let me see, October, November, December. Okay. But anyway, as you say, 6 months, it is 6 months. But yes, we did go through premarital counseling, and it was a blessing for me. The things that I learned from my minister.
Yeah.
He sat us down. We went through a few sessions, and we went there like weekly. Was it weekly?
It was weekly.
It was weekly.
It was weekly.
And yeah, it was some things that he instilled in us that still stay, that we still remember even to this day and apply to this day. Because even I read a quote that says that the top causes of divorce is finances, kids, religion, and in-laws. And one of the things that our minister brought up was putting everything together. Like he said, especially the finance. He said, Trinique, Nixon, make sure you guys have one account. And I didn't understand it. Like while he was like saying, make sure everything that you guys is shared, is oneness. Because behold, in the future, like later on, I noticed that there's couples that have different accounts. And there's some sneaky stuff that can happen. And then when I came to that realization, I said, oh, so this is why he told us to have like one account, just so, the enemy won't creep in our marriage. So, so Trinique can't be sneaky. I won't be sneaky. Not saying that she is, but I think that was the pivotal thing that he mentioned to us, to put everything in one account. And like I mentioned, that's something that stayed with us to today. Now, don't get me wrong. It was a struggle for Trinique, and I'm gonna let her talk on that, because again, as I mentioned, Trinique was an independent woman. Trinique had her own stuff, your own bank account, own car, own stuff. So you talk about a dude that would live with his parents all these years, and he's moving in. Like, what's going on? So I'm gonna let Trinique, talk about her experience and how does she adjust from, having one.
Well, as far as especially with the finances, because I'm a free spirit. I love to spend, and Nick is more so. He struggled, so that's why he handles the finances even to this day, because I'm free spirit. I love to spend, and with him, he knows what it is to be without, so he is very on point when it comes to finances. I must give him that. He is on point when it comes to finances. So when it came to finances, I was kind of like, no, because I was always grew up that you have your own. Now, everybody does things their own way, and we have friends that they have their own account and whatever, and they separate, and that's fine. This is what works for us. Mm-hmm. And it took a long time for it to work for me. Mm-hmm. So I think he adjusted with me and worked with me, and that's why we decided to have where it comes like we have our money go into account, mm-hmm. and then we have blow money, which we could blow it on anything, because he knew I was struggling with that account situation. So he said, okay, here's your blow money, and then I have mine, and that's separate. So that's how we worked it out. Like I said, we don't knock couples that do it, because this is what works for us, and it keeps us accountable for one another. And that's how we work on it.
Yeah, also one of the things that I wanted to highlight is one of the things that the minister mentioned in our counseling session. He said, Nick, you're the leader. You're going to be the priest, the provider and protector of your home. And I took that to heart. So when he said priest, he's like, Nick, you got to always, take the initiative to always break bread and have fellowships with your family about the word of God. Yeah. And that's important, because we live in a world where, especially men, we always want to make money for our families and take care of our families. But he said, always take time and spend time with your children, your wife, talk about the word, whatever you have the opportunity to talk about the word. And he said, always provide for your family. And he says it's your obligation to protect your family. So I took that to heart, and that's something that I still apply even to this day.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it. Janisha Monte, you want to say something? Because I have a question from one of the viewers as well, but I don't want to cut you out.
Yeah, I could say something. It was just a lot of the things that was said, I definitely agree with and were very similar to our experience. However, in the beginning, I was against going to premarital counseling. My mother is a licensed therapist and counselor, and I, grew up, being very self-aware and everything like that. So I didn't think that was something that we needed.
So he thought.
Right. Right. And it was just because of my perspective. I was looking at it as like, oh man, that's something you go to when you have problems. And so our counselor was actually a minister at the time here at Sunset, who is a professional as well, licensed. And one of the things he told me that stuck with me was, when you come to counseling, you're asking the questions. It's like the Sister Wilson was saying, it's for tools. It's for you to get things that you can take and apply. When you come to therapy, he's like, I'm asking the questions. So that kind of flipped my perspective. And then another one of the things we learned and we talked about all the time, because we probably did counseling for like about a year, almost a year before we got married. And so it was the spiritual perspective of what it meant to be a husband. That's one of the things that, I knew there were responsibilities, but the reality of it and the full gravity of what it meant to be a husband was realized when we were in premarital counseling. So that's why it was very important. I'd recommend, and we do now recommend all of our friends and everyone to have premarital counseling, especially with a spiritual leader as well, who is a professional. You're going to get the tools from both sides, And but yeah, it was something that we appreciated.
I'm going to change a little bit because I have two very important questions that I want to make sure we get answered. So I'm going to shift a little. The first one, Ivan, I want you to start this one off, okay? And I'm not saying nobody else answer, but I want him, by him having the credentials he have, that's why. What is your take on being friends with the opposite sex outside of the marriage? And I say that because I don't know if anything like that came up while you were in your counseling sessions. So that's why I said I wanted you to start it. But everybody else, you still can answer. Okay.
Yeah. So friends outside of the marriage. Opposite sex friends. Okay. And yeah, because I think that friendship, or the word friend, has like layers to it or whatever. I don't say that like you can't have a friend, quote unquote, but like anybody that I communicate with outside of Stephanie, being like nobody, I don't share secrets, my life, so there may be moments like I'm thinking about in my life. I have a lady that sits next to me when I go to my dialysis treatment. Okay, but my wife knows who she is, and that relationship doesn't go anywhere outside of dialysis. So it's like we spend 4 hours together, and then we go about our business. So I don't think I know that it's not wise to share a relationship with somebody of the opposite sex, and in which you share secrets and you complain about, what's going on in your marriage, but I think that about family and friends, so that's, that's, I just don't think that that's wise. Maybe that's the best way for me to sum it up.
Good answer. Anybody else want to add to that? Because he pretty much summed that one up, didn't he? Do you all agree with that, or do you have a different take? Because I so agree with that. There are layers to friendship, and it depends on what you define. Go ahead, Ivan.
I will also add, see, once you get me started thinking and talking about stuff, then stuff just keep on coming. So now, open the floodgates. You're crazy. So here's the thing. Even if there was a person that I or Stephanie had a relationship with, that we were friends of the opposite sex, but then either one of us say, hey, I don't like that. All right. It's over. Like, that's immediate right then and there. There's no more, discussion about it. Because I'm just thinking about some situations where both of us have been in situations where the other didn't like the feeling, the vibe, whatever it is that relationship was producing, and immediately that was done. So I would say having the respect of your, for your mate, that if they uncomfortable with something, it doesn't matter what it really is. It doesn't matter. Do I respect my mate enough to, or more than that deal?
And I'd like to add, since we're right there,
Mhm.
If it's something that Ivan is uncomfortable with, I know in relationships we have a habit sometimes of blaming things on insecurity. Well, he's just insecure. You talking to somebody, he's just insecure, and I shouldn't have to give up my friendship because we've been friends before he came along. No. I don't care what you were. I don't care what you were before your husband came along. That's your husband. And if my husband is uncomfortable, we all are uncomfortable. We're uncomfortable up in here. And it's the same and vice versa. If I'm uncomfortable, we're uncomfortable up in here. Everybody's uncomfortable. So something has to change. And whatever that is outside of here, if it's outside of here, it's got to go.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing because she stresses something. You're right. I love that. You're right. You're right. And
I just get kind of passionate about that because I just hear like a lot of, we talk to a lot of people and couples, and I don't know how we got to be, the coming lay all your trouble down to the Wilsons, but that's okay. It's okay. But I just hear that a lot. No, you should, because this is about considering your mate. You're one. And it's so easy to see. It's so easy to look in the mirror and see me. But then when it's time to see from his perspective, then there's all these excuses. No, then it becomes about being selfish. And, I just call it what it is. Even when it's me, you just got to call it what it is. Stop being selfish. Put yourself in those shoes and ask yourself, what would you want your husband to do?
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to ask this one, starting with Nick. Okay. Because it's saying independence, and they have independence all spelled with capital letters. Okay. Okay. And this is not a snub at you. It's not a snub. I'm saying I wanted to come with you because of what you said, that was quite an adjustment. Becoming that prince of your household instantaneously. The question is, the question is, when was your first aha moment when learning about yourself when married to take on that role, basically? Now you see why I wanted to start with you.
Yeah, so whoever posed that question, that's a good question. So the thing is, I think what God does, God prepares a person before they become married. And what I've done to have my aha moment came when I was being nosy. I was in a similar platform just like this, similar to this. Mm-hmm. My church at the time was having a marriage enrichment class. Yeah. And I was a single man. I knew that I wanted to become married. I just didn't know when. So what I did, I went to the marriage class as a single man. So whoever's single on here, God gonna bless you. You're on your way. So I went there with a notepad and I started like jotting down notes. So God knows when to prepare a person for marriage. So God was preparing me. So mentally, by going to those classes on a weekly basis as a single person, Trinique did not know that I was going. Trinique, I later on revealed that to Trinique that I was going to a marriage class. And she like, for real? She said, why are you going to a marriage class for? I said, look, I want to learn about marriage. You know, I want to learn about marriage. But not knowing that she would be become engaged a few months later. So I had my aha moment when I was going to those classes. So going to those classes and going to counseling to me was a bonus because I already got my counseling session as a single. Yeah. So that's why I think like platforms like this, as single people are watching this, they probably can have their aha moment right now by just sitting down, jotting down notes of what the Wilsons are talking about, the Villes and also the Williams. They may have that aha moment like right here because prior to going to that class, all I could think is about being independent, being under my parents' roof, taking care of moms, which was my aunt. I used to call her moms, but I didn't know about that transition about, you know, being a husband to a wife. It wasn't until that I started knowing about what the Bible says about Adam and Eve, husband and wife, and also going to those classes. So that's when my aha moment, it clicked and it made sense, and it prepared me to propose to this queen right here.
Okay.
Did anyone else want to add their aha moment there when it was like, this is real? Okay. Okay. Well, Nick, I think you did a good job answering that question. Okay. So let's go to, we kind of talked about the escape. Now we're going to talk about the reassessment, blending the family and the life fulfillment phase. And I put those all together because I want to make sure we get a chance to talk about those, because that's really that time when you say, okay, I am either grounded or I'm not. Okay, I'm going to stay or I'm not. Is it about me or is it about us? Okay, I want Shanoa and Marcus, if you don't mind, I want you all to start that one off for us. And I can repeat the question or to repeat it if I need to. Okay. We're talking about the reassessment time, blending the family together. And I say that I wanted to start with you all because I know your family is blended. Okay. So that's that time, like I said, that you really buckle down and make that decision, what we're going to do. Okay. And also during this time, sometimes this is the time when those husbands or wives go out and buy the Camaro. This is that time too, when they like, okay, I don't know if I did the right thing. It's time for me to be me. This is that time. So tell me what you had to do to say, okay, you know what? I'm in it to win it. There's no stopping us now. We're going to do this. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it. If we're not, we're not. Did y'all have that aha moment to think there?
I think we kind of talked about that when we first got married. We was both, I mean, we wasn't old when we got married, but we was 30 and we was both just tired of going through failed relationships. And we was like, look, we gonna do this, we gonna do this. And I mean, we talked about stuff like that. It ain't always gonna be easy, but we gotta be in it. And later on in life, especially when my husband got more into the church, it became more about, we know how serious marriage is in the Bible, that commitment. So I think we both just kind of understood that our commitment is with God first, to God first. And I think that helped us look at each other and show a little more grace, you know, like, yeah, we not doing this just for us. We're committed to God first. And because of that, we have to be committed to each other.
Mm-hmm. Amen. You know, Janisha and Monty, even though you may say that you've been married for almost 3 years and you were together, yes, for 10 years, but I'm sure that 10-year and that marriage, moving together, two totally different things. So this is also that time I'm talking about too, with even a marriage that has not been as long. Tell me about that for you two.
I guess in the traditional sense with like the blending the families, like we didn't have kids or anything like that on our own, but it was still two families coming together, two very different families coming together. I know when we first started discussing this, Monty's, he's the oldest in his family, and I'm the baby girl in my family. So as far as that transition, his family had a little bit more of a, you want to speak on that?
Yeah, it was more, I would say it was
just-
more of a hard start for my family, my immediate family, when we were getting married and everything, because my family's military. So when we met, we were in college and dating, and so I was around her family, and she was around my mother's side of the family. So we saw each other's families all the time. But my immediate family was on the West Coast still, so there wasn't that same type of connection and relationship building between us with them and those same experiences. We didn't get those opportunities. So by the time they moved back to the East Coast, and they were here, and it was like, all right, now we're about to get married. To them, it was like, okay, wait a minute, you guys are going fast, So they were looking at it more so like, well, it's you guys got to take you don't rush to have kids and all this type of stuff. And we're like, no, we know this is something that we want to do. And that was something that honestly, we've been talking about it for a while and anticipating it. So that was more of the adjustment in regards to blending the families. It was just more so my family was like, okay, I'm the oldest, the first grand. So it's a lot of letting go that they had to do, and it came to them at too soon. And
I think as far as like on our relationship level and going into our marriage, that was a big thing between us as far as his immediate family's perspective and events that transpired, with that. So our kind of like, all right, are we doing this type of thing? Like, I'm about to be your wife. You gonna have my back? Like, those type of conversations we had to have. And even in that first year of that marriage, we had to have those kind of conversations. Like, okay, we together,
right?
Like with my family, I wasn't the first. I'm the baby. Everybody's got married, had kids, and established their lives. My mama, she, as close as we are, she don't want no parts of interfering. Like funny story, sidebar, the night that we had our first initial little meet and greet with us on the Zoom call, we had a date night scheduled after the call. My mom purposely didn't come into town that night just so we could have that time together.
Right.
So that type of respect and things like that was already established. And again, some of it is because they knew Monty since the beginning. But I know even if they weren't on board or like, certain things didn't happen the way they were supposed to, I know right here, he's my number one. I love y'all. We'll deal with this when it's time to deal with it, or y'all come around when you need to. So that was that transition.
I love it.
Yeah. Can I answer that question when I knew I was all in?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I knew when I was all in when I had to leave my auntie house. Now I call her my auntie, but she's like a mom to me. My mom passed away when I was 11 years old, so you can imagine just living with her for all those years until I was in my late 20s. And again, this is why I said that counseling is important, because my minister told me that I had to detach that relationship with my aunt, because I didn't want my aunt into my marriage. So I knew when I was all in, when I had to do that, like that I had to put my wife above my aunt, because the Bible says that, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother house and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one. So I knew that, Trinique, I'm all in, because if I could detach from my aunt, that mean, you got me. And on top of that, I was brought up in a close-knit family. My mother had 8 children. So all of us was like real close. It's 6 boys, 2 girls. So you talking about blood is thicker than water, blood is thicker than water. So when I got married to Trinique, my brothers, they said time to time, they used to ask me for money, they used to ask for favors. And then Trinique used to always get in the way of things, and they used to say, hey, bro, blood is thicker than water, bro. Like,
I'm water.
Yeah, she's water. She's water. So, and then so I had to kind of put my foot on the ground, like, nah, like she's my wife, so she's above all you guys, like all of y'all. So, I mean, I got some heat for that. Cause they're looking at it like, bro, like, you know, we came out the same womb. Like, come on, bro. You know, we was brought up in the hood and we overcame a lot of things.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, but at the same time, that's my wife you're talking about. This is a part of me. So when I had to detach myself from my auntie and I had to put my wife over my siblings, that's when I knew that I was all in. Because what typically happens when a man lives with her mother for a long time, chances are the son is going to always tend to put, you know, his mom over his wife. So I didn't want that in my household. So I knew that I had to like say, auntie, you know, I'm going to take this box and kind of like put you on the hill and kind of put my wife right there, you know, where she belongs. And that's when I knew I was all in. And Trinique said she was all in when she had to detach her daughter.
Yeah, because I knew I was all in. It's like, because it has always been, and that's where it was a power struggle for Nick and myself, because my daughter's father was definitely not a part of her life growing up. He's just starting to be a part of her life now. So I knew that I was all in is more so when I kind of like, because I had raised her, we was in the same apartment, even, you know, we slept in the same bed. So it was more so that she felt like Nick was kind of like taking me away from her. And I had to, but the thing is, I had to sit down and I had to explain it to her. And I had to kind of like, and it was kind of like detaching away, not so much detaching away from her because she was young, but detaching and letting her know that, you know, this is who is going to be a part of our lives. And Nick made it so, even though it wasn't an easy transition, it wasn't easy. I don't want to make it seem like it was rainbows and cupcakes. It had its struggles, because a lot of times she would try to come to me and kind of be manipulative of the situation because she was a kid. So we had to set boundaries and we had to set rules and we had to stick to them. And I couldn't go to the side and be like, okay, just did it. I couldn't do that. It was boundaries and rules. So that was kind of like where we was at. And Nick did a phenomenal job, you know, stepping in and being that priest, provider and protector. Even to this day now, like, you know, glory to God, like now she wants to talk to him sometimes. She'll talk to me, but when there's certain things that she just wants to talk to him. And I thank God for him as he's stepping into that role and taking that role seriously and knowing that we were a package deal. And what I love so much about Nick is he doesn't call her his stepdaughter. We don't knock people that they do, but he doesn't do that. He always say that's his daughter. Now, if people ask the question, well, how you have a daughter that, you know, that age, then he'll break it down. But if there's no question, he always say, that's my daughter. He always say, that's my baby girl. So, and I appreciate that for him, because not a lot of men would do that, because they will put the step in it. And it kind of like when you sometimes put the step in it, it kind of like puts a division into it, but he bridged that gap. And I thank God for him being the man of God that he was, to see that and to bridge that gap and to know that there is no step. Because it don't mean that just because her father's her biological father, and he doesn't even act like a father, but Nick act more like a dad than her own dad does. And she has stated that on numerous occasions. She always said that he's my real dad. And she talks about Nick. So it doesn't mean just because somebody immaculate conception that's who the father is. It's whoever is in that child's life and that takes on that role.
Love it. Love it. Because the thing I continue, and I want you all to hear this. Because in marriage, as it's been stated over and over again tonight, that you have to overcome challenges. But the key word here is overcome. And what I mean by that you made these conscious decision to stay together. Okay? In making those decisions, even when you had situations that occurred, you decided to leave the past and those situations right where they were, which require you not to bring up those things again in derogatory manners. Now, that don't mean that you may not continue to discuss some things to make it better, but you do not use it in a way that you use it against each other. And you all made the decision to stay. Okay? So what I want you all to do now, because I have If you have anything you want to leave, I want you all to leave me with something, or leave the family with something that you want them to know, your main thing about marriage. And also in doing that, I want you to let us know how we can get in touch with you, your platforms, or however you want people to get in touch with you. Anybody can start.
All right, so Ivan Wilson, and as far as getting in touch with me, I am, I think it's just Ivan Wilson on Instagram and Facebook, Messenger. So pretty much you name it, I'm there. Like I said, we live here in Greensboro, North Carolina, or, you know, inbox me or whatever. And my wife accuses me of talking to anybody and everybody. So yeah, if you reach out to me, then you know, you get my time. So that's just kind of where we are. But I will close with saying this is a quote that I got from Dr. Phil, and this is also kind of goes back to the last question. Sometimes we make the right decision, but then sometimes we have to make the decision right. And for those of us who are God's people, when we feel like this ain't working, so-and-so ain't making me happy, or this ain't what I signed up for, then we have that obligation to make the decision right. So that's just my encouragement, that make the decision right.
Okay, well, I'm Stephanie Booker Wilson. I can be reached on social media, Facebook, Stephanie Booker Wilson, Stephanie Sings, or Stephanie Sings Vocal Studio. So those 3 pages. I do respond to messages. So if you DM me, I will respond. 336-891-0049 is the number to reach me. That is Stephanie Sings. I do respond more to texts than calls. So if you have any questions about anything that I do or about this live, you can contact me at that number, 336-891-0049, and also on Instagram, Stephanie Sings Vocal. I guess I will leave you. That was good, honey. That was really good. I don't have anything profound. I don't have any cute quote. I would just say, as far as marriage is concerned, take your time and sisters, just let the word be true. Let the word be true. A man that findeth a wife findeth a good thing. You're not his wife when he finds you. You're not his wife when he finds you. But if he finds you, you already embody wifey characteristics. And that's why he's attracted to you. So remember that a man that findeth a wife findeth a good thing. You can't decide you're gonna be wifey and start doing wifey stuff. You already got to be doing that. You already have to be that. So I guess I lied. I do have a cute quote to go along with that. Be what you want to see. Be what you want to see. So whatever it is you're looking for, you be that.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead, Marcus. I see your hand on the button.
So I'm on Facebook and Instagram as just Marcus Lavelle. You can just search for me. And I would leave everybody with you got to keep you got to rekindle the fire. You got to keep the flame going. We like to go on dates. We like to just do different things whenever we can travel, because both of us love to travel. We get out there and travel. I mean, we even watch movies together, but we also give each other space as well. You know, I like to watch my shows, she like to watch her shows. But you know, whenever a good movie's coming out or coming on, I'll tell her like, hey man, let's watch whatever movie. And she'll draw me in the man cave. We'll check it out together. So yeah, let's keep the flame going. You got to do something different. You can't let it get stagnant.
And so, yeah, and I know most people heard that saying that marriage is not a noun, it's a verb. It's not something you get, but it's something you do. So every day you wake up, we have to continuously get to know each other because we're still getting to know each other because I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. My husband is the same person he was this morning. So we have to continually get to know each other and grow together. So yeah, that's my thing. You gotta always be flexible because people change.
Amen. Amen. Nixon Sylvain here. I could be reached on Facebook at Nick Sylvain. I know Sister Rosa would say Silabani. so however you want to pronounce it, that's fine. I also have a platform. I also have a podcast. It's called Called by God Podcast. It's a platform where I have a dialogues about biblical characters that were called by God. And also I invite members in a body in Christ to come share their testimony of how God called them into salvation. So I have this weekly platform. It's been a blessing. It's been blessing people globally. So I thank God for that. So check it out. It's on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts. It's pretty much on all platforms. So I can be reached if you want to listen to some of the content that I have out there. And I would say this. So marriage is a beautiful thing. Marriage is something else that is ordained by God. And at the same time, we know that we are fallible. We're not perfect. And so I would say this, that marriage, you're not going to be perfect. Now, a godly marriage is that you have two imperfect people, but what perfects the marriage is Jesus Christ. Amen. So because we have Jesus Christ in the center of our home, that's what perfects us even in our marriage. And I would say this, before I got married, I did not know how selfish I was. So God had to check me, because when you're single, you're not gonna see, like, you're not gonna see some ways in yourself. It's like you're not gonna have a mirror. You're gonna be like, yeah, I envy, I'm selfish. It's not until you get married and then God's gonna push your buttons. So I would say this: when it comes to marriage, it's all about love, and we talk about love, the action word. And I got this from 1 Corinthians 13, where it says that love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, nor does it boast. And love is not self-seeking, and the whole nine. So I would say this: love, when it talks about marriage, it's all about action. It's show me better than you can tell me. Because it's easy to say. It's easy for me to wake up in the morning and be like, "Hey, Trinique, I love you. I love you." And I know it's just Trinique gonna say, "Show me," because she's the free spirit. You better show me you love me. So I would say this, love is an action word, and that's something that, we got to practice every day on a daily, patience, forgiveness. And I think, Sister Roz, you mentioned that it's about being patient and about showing grace to your partner, and even mercy. And time to time, and I'm not going to say time to time, pretty much every day, Trinique and I say, you know what, I forgive you, and she forgive me, and we pray about it, and we just move forward. We don't hold those grudges. We just know how to, we're mature enough 10 years in, that we can say, you know what, it was me, it's on me, that was my fault. And I think that's what it's about. It's about forgiveness and exemplifying and showing that love to your partner.
I don't know how to follow up behind that.
Let's talk about our marriage. Just talk.
It's Trinique Sylvain. You can reach me on Instagram, Facebook, Trinique Sylvain or Sylvani. I agree with my husband. Pretty much when you have, I think this is a great platform for people that may be single or thinking about marriage. I think this is really good because it's not all roses and cupcakes. It's not all of that. You have the good, the bitter, the sweet, and the in between. But the most important thing is just keeping God in the midst of your marriage. And I agree with that. Definitely. Me and my husband, we believe in date nights. He does like to watch movies. It's just that movies are kind of like hard for us because I like horror and he does not like horror. He likes action. So we have to I love horror. And we have to just figure it out. And we just have to we got to work together.
Yeah.
But it's give and take. So we kind of we watch together. So I mean, definitely communication is definitely key. And you can't hold anything in. You have to be very upfront and frank, even if you feel like it's going to hurt their feelings, because you don't want to harbor and hold anything in your heart and be upset. So that's another thing. But like my husband said, marriage is definitely a beautiful thing, but it's what you make it. You know, I like what Stephanie say, be what you want to see.
And one more last thing before I move to the next couple. Trinique and I got this passage from the Bible. It says that open rebuke is better than secret love.
Yes.
So we rather rebuke each other than pretend like we love. Like, hey, I'm pretending like I love. So, open rebuke is better than secret love.
Absolutely.
So we rebuke each other in love.
Yes.
Awesome. Janisha, Monty, you want to leave us with some final words?
I don't know how we got last. I'm not really active on social media. I'll let him tell. We are part of a young adult group at our church, so I'll have him give the information for that.
Yeah, our the page definitely. The group is called Living in Truth. So on Instagram, you can find us at Stay Lit Living in Truth, Stay Lit Sunset, and follow us on there. That's where we post all our information. Same thing with our young adults conferences and everything as well. So you can definitely reach out on those platforms. It's we have Facebook as well.
As far as like final words, in regards to our marriage, like most people, like all the other couples said, it works if you work it. And it's funny that Trinique, I think Nick was saying his last point, like it's okay to like rebuke, or I had written down it's okay to hold each other accountable, and not like a tit for tat type of thing, but being open and creating that safe space. Like, okay, what you said or how you handled this situation affected me, or holding yourself accountable. Maybe I could have said this better, or could have done this better, and just creating that habitat of a godly marriage.
Yeah, and I think to follow that up, it's very important to be intentional about those things too. Someone said, communication is important. It is. It's transparency as well. Anybody can communicate, but if you're not being clear about what your intentions are, you're gonna have problems. So it's transparency, it's communicating, but it's also getting an understanding of from what you need from your spouse, and vice versa. Those go a long way.
And if you can't be completely 100% naked emotionally with your significant other, if somebody's dating or intentions to be married, if you can't just be emotionally 100% naked, expose the good, the bad, and the ugly, then you might want to reconsider some things, or like we said earlier, go to premarital counseling.
Yeah,
definitely get you where you need to be at. So
yeah, we definitely want to. Yeah, we want to encourage all younger people, older people, whatever, to be married. I'm hearing a lot lately. A lot of younger people are saying, I'm not sure about getting married, or if that's something I really want to do. There's so many divorces going on, et cetera, et cetera. And I know all the time you don't always have the best example of a healthy marriage in front of everybody. So those are things we don't see, on the daily. But I would say for me, it's been a blessing. I always say, I've made 2 great decisions in my life so far. And the first came because of my wife when we were dating, which was deciding to put on Christ in baptism. It changed my life. And the next greatest decision that I made was proposing to my wife. That's right, baby. And so I would say that there's so many things I've learned, and I've been able to grow and develop because of my marriage. And so all young men, everyone in general, marriage is something that is on the table. Don't discount it, or don't count it out. Don't discredit yourself from something that you'd be missing out on, something that God has, established. And I look at it like our marriage is our first ministry. It's the reflection of Christ with his people. So if you can get this right, you can really reach people. And sometimes you're a living testimony to people that you don't even realize who are paying attention. So this is why it's so important. So to have that love in the home, so you can have it out in the world too.
I just want to say thank you all because my husband and I are older than everybody up here. We've been married longer, but I can guarantee you we have learned a lot tonight listening to you all. And I say that because my minister sent me a message. We should always remember the longer we are married, the more accepting we are. My minister is my husband, y'all. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay? Acceptance will be needed. We also need to keep the I do concept in the marriage. Every year we are going to change. And when that happens, we must continue to say, I do. So he was listening to y'all too. So thank y'all very much. We both needed to hear that because like I said, sometime after you marry for a little while, you need to hear some of these fresher takes again, just to remember the reason why you got married. Okay. Family, if you all need to have any questions and you need to get on these platforms or get in touch with anyone here, you can also reach out to me as well, Rosalind Green Price, and you can reach out to me. You can either reach out to me on Facebook, Roz Real Talk Now, on YouTube and Instagram, Real Talk Now Roz. Family, I appreciate you all so very much, and I want y'all to stay right there because I'm going to end the show, but we're going to come right back. Make it a good one.